her, but the story is very bizarre. So it was, I graduated from my college. I did fine art university, 6 years in Moscow, and my parents were concerned that I was not participating in young woman life enough as like everyone else should do. I was just constantly painting in my room. So they decided to take me on a road trip, advised by their friend psychiatrist, who said, oh, just keep her away from the easel and she'll recover instantly. So they took me on a road trip abroad to Bulgaria to go in 89, before Berlin Wall came down. In fact, it was 88, I just graduated. And to go to Bulgaria was a big deal. I mean, it was like, wow, I'm going abroad. Never been to Bulgaria. So off we went through Romania. That was Ceausescu, Romania at the time. Dark and scary. Lots of naked children running, dead horses on the road. And in Bulgaria, I've met an English, by sitting and drawing on the side of the town, I've met an English chap called Ian Ribbons. He was in his late 60s and I was 21. And we swapped, we did the same scene, and he said to me, let's exchange. So I gave him my drawing and he gave me his drawing, and he asked me to write my address on the back. So I wrote him Moscow address. It's like, hello, I'm from the moon, would you like my moon address? Sure. So I wrote him my moon address, Moscow address, and invited him to join us for dinner with my parents. He came to the hotel and had dinner with my mama and papa, and totally fallen in love with our family. And when we got back to Russia, we started having sort of buckets of letters from him, letters after letters after letters. And anyway, he invited the whole family to come to London. And my father said, no way I'll go, absolutely no way. My mum said, well, if Papa's not going, I'm not going. I said, I'll go. So I just pursued the visa. It took about 9 months, and lots of patience, lots of going, signing very silly papers, whatever we need to do. We had to need to do, I don't know what it's like now. And off I went, tiny little rucksack with a few things, £200 cash, that's all we were allowed. And I took my portfolio of my drawings. I don't know why I did it. It was me. And I arrived to Ian Ribbon's studio, which was Studio 1, Knight's House, Hortensia Road. Okay. And I was 22. It was 30th of March, 1989. Okay, so fast forward, lots of things happened. America happened, and Tony Caro happened, Jeff happened, Scotland happened, 2 children happened, marriage, divorce happened, and so almost 30 years down the line, I decided I'm coming back to London. Yeah, because Royal Court what happened. I'm coming back to London, and where am I going to look for the studio? Of course I should look east of London for the studio, because that's where everything's happening. It's a dynamic, interesting community full of artists. That's where I want to be. Universe, can you please help me to find a studio? Boom. The first studio, it was completely fluke of coincidences. I was at a dinner party with my friends. Somebody rang, said, letting a studio. Do you know anyone? I was across the table, and I said, yes, I know, but this Schenker wants a studio. Pass me the phone. I answer the phone, and the guy says, oh yeah, my studio, I'm subletting. Where is it? Oh, it's Studio 1, Knight's House, Hortensia Road. Okay, I didn't ask how much, I just said, I'll take it. And so 30 years down the line, I ended up back to the same studio. How weird is that? Okay, I forgot about Jeff. So
that's amazing.
It's weird. I keep asking universe, would you please tell me why am I? And that is another weird thing, because when I arrived first and stayed at that studio and worked, that's when I've met Jeff. And I've met him through Greenwich Artist Studios, and I've met Greenwich Studios through painting in the middle of the street. I was approached by Aggie Katz from Boundary Gallery, who said she wants to give me a show. I hardly spoke any English, and they invited me over to Greenwich Studios, and that's where I met Tony Caro, Robert Loder and Jeff Lowe. And Tony said she wanted to come and do the triangle workshop. So that's a separate, really fun story. That's why Maggie has to write a book, because there was another story how I was getting American visa and flying 2 days later than everyone else to America. And when I landed, there was Jeff expecting me to arrive. And that's where we started.
Incredible story.
It's good fun.
Amazing, yeah. And now we're here.
Now we're here. And so now I'm back at the Knights Studios, and I'm showing with Jeff, and quite a few things from that past are turning in a different way, but turning back. So it's interesting to me.
Amazing.
The whole connection between the sculpture, the pieces on the floor and the pieces on the wall, are very organic, and bizarrely so, not just the ones I specifically made for the show, but my own work, not connected to Jeff's in particular paintings, seems to be very organically linked to Jeff's sculpture in the rhythm, colour, shapes. Somehow they have a connection, don't you think? So they really talk to each other in some sort of interesting visual. Fundamentally, how we create our work is very different from one another.
Have you ever shown together before?
We never had a show before, no, but we worked together before, and we endlessly talk about art and paintings and sculpture and about the process, but we've never shown before, so first time.
In terms of putting it on the canvas, could you talk me through your process a little bit? Normally, just...
Yeah, I mean, there is I don't have a formula. The thing is, that's the truth is, I don't have a set rules, how things, and every time I begin, it's that sort of horrendous panic of, as if you've never done it and you have no idea where to start. I mean, of course, certain things are familiar and it feels comfortable and it's exciting, and I've never really taken drugs properly or remotely, but I imagine that's how you feel when you are, because it is very exciting when you paint. It really is something very special, I think, and particularly when the painting goes well, it's a high, it's a definitely wonderful experience. But how do you begin? It depends what I do. If I work from life, when you came to the studio, I certainly had a subject and an object in front of me, so I was working with visual elements, so that's one process. If I work in my studio so what I do, I use material which I collect, it's drawings, so I draw from life. I use photographs, and I sort of try to, it could be set off through an image, one image I've seen, or kind of worked out through doing endless amount of drawings and wiggles. But when you actually start working, I try to just let go of all the, I try, you try to sort of think, okay, if you allow the preconceived image to dissolve and not having this corridor vision, I just want my painting to look like this, like that image I imagine. I think that's death to the painting, because it's like entering a conversation with someone, not allowing this person to say a word. So ultimately you're trying to have a conversation with the canvas. So you chuck a few things in, and then you step back and you respond. You try to see, you kind of hope that it will talk back to you and hopefully guide you somewhere where you haven't thought about and you haven't imagined. Because ultimately you really want to be surprised by your painting, and you want to be taken to the place, and then your job is to recognize it. The trouble is, my problem, I think, that I don't always trust myself, and I overwork things because I just feel it's not enough, or it can't be that I got it so quickly and must do more. And so that's very upsetting, but I do a lot. That painting which we've got at the show, the white crane, the small one, the little one. I think in that painting I just had the wits to stop.
How do you know when to stop?
I think you do. It's a very you do know. I mean, if you look at the painter like Bonnard, for example, who believed that the painting is never finished, and on that level I agree with him, it's never finished. But within one painting you can have 20 paintings. You can keep taking it to the next level and the next level and the next level, and where is that final mark? So in some ways it's never finished, but in different ways that when you said what you wanted to say, and then what I call it, the packaging process begins. Because the insecurity, the thought, the image could be very simple, but the insecurities are that would it be understandable for others? How does the outside viewer did I say enough? Shall I just explain it a bit better? Shall I just package it a bit? So you start adding up, and the truth is, stop. You just stop. So I brought this example with White Crane that I knew everything I wanted was there, and so I just thought I'll stop. I love, because I mixed up this Caput Mortem is always my all-time favorite. I think every artist should have a tube of Caput Mortem in their paint box. I love that colour. It's a fabulous colour. So I did a pigment. I mixed up my own pigment, and I played around with different media. So I put a bit of Dorma varnish, and then I put the bit of wax, and I put the turpentine. You sort of create that fluidity, which is almost like ink.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And you I don't know. It is it's a wonderful intuitive process, and so when I finished in that kind of one, like Philip Gaston used to do, he used to just come really close to the canvas and just do this, and then without judging, without allowing to step back, look and judge, he would just turn around, walk out of the studio, and don't come back till next day, because you have that distance. So you don't go step back, judge, destroy, step back, rebuild, destroy, rebuild. So I did just that. I just did and left. And I wish I could do it all the time, but that's why you keep going, that's why you keep painting. You know, I was talking to Jeff in a funny sort of way, you know, about, and there's so many complex issues about the art world and the recognition of what you are, who you are, what sort of things you do, you know, that sort of need, in brackets, for the contemporary art to create a brand of yourself, you know. So if you say Tracy Amin, you know exactly what her brand is. If you say, you know, whoever, they have sort of a stamp. And we were talking about it, and Jeff was talking in particular about my work, and then I said, and he said, you've got it. And it's always there in the first stage of your work, but then you come in as, i.e., insecurities and judgments and everything else, and then you cover it up with all sorts of other things. So I guess the aim is to, like a, I don't know, onion sort of layers, to just try to strip it one by one to the core, and just allow that core to be for what it is.
So what would you say your brand at that core is?
Which is actually very direct,
yeah,
and very light. It's not about, you know, enormous. It lives in a kind of false dimension. It's something what you don't see. You see but you don't see, but that could be transmitted through amalgamation of that experience when you look at the painting. And you know, I thought about it yesterday. I went to see Van Gogh at the Tate, Millbank Tate, and I walked around the show, and I thought to myself, that proves 100% that the good painting has energy, you know, has that very special fourth dimensional vibration, energy. I don't know how to quantify it in or title it in the verbal sort of world, but how a strong painting stands out. It just has, even before you can see what it is exactly. And I believe that's when things come from a genuine, honest, utterly honest core of one's being, when you're trying to transmit that energy, you know, that sort of thing you carry in, you know, where it's not about tricks, techniques, being clever or whatever those things might be. That's when it happens, you know, this is it. And I know maybe it sounds very childish, but that's the only thing is worthwhile to me. And so, to answer a long way around to your question, what is it? In my bathroom, in my loo, in this studio, on the wall, I wrote my mantra. So whenever I'm in the bathroom, I face it every day, a few times a day. It says, keep it simple, keep it strange, keep it me. That's what it is, you know, that's all you want. You just want to be you. And it sounds simple, but it's probably the hardest thing to do, particularly in the current climate of the art world, trends, demands, appetites, guidances and dominance of what's supposed to be number one, and the whole conflict between curators and artists. Well, I mean, say in the times of Born Art, for example, there was never such conflict where the curators will set the trend, where the word was sort of the concept came before the paintings. So these days, so the written word was rather always serving the visual world of painting, and it was there to enhance and to support the painting.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll say more, it came secondary after the painting. Okay, I don't think Bonnard would be having the dilemma which we all contemporary artists do. Now, these days, the curator seems to set up the trend, the concept, before the painting or any art work arrives. And painters always have to, well, artists have to look over their shoulders constantly to make sure that they are in line with the curators who fancies themselves cerebral people, more important than the artwork themselves.
Because there is a part of this show which is kind of about looking back. There is a couple of references to like 30 years ago where you and Jeff met and stuff like that. And do you think either your process has changed, or like how you see contemporary painting, or even how you see the art world? Do you think it's a completely different? Are you in a completely different space now than you were then when you met Jeff?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm aware that's a very big question, but like.
Yeah, it is a big question, but it's yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a huge yes and it's no, because the biggest difference that 30 years ago, I was, 22, and I thought I knew everything. I was so certain about what's right and what's wrong. There's been no hesitation. You'll ask me, you'll interview me then. You'll be surprised how certain I was. In fact, I'd love to find that interview. I had a show at Olympia in 1990, and I had the whole stand of my paintings, and I was interviewed for BBC. I can't remember, BBC 4, BBC 2, I don't know, I can't remember, some BBC. So I've got the tape from BBC, a copy of my interview, and oh my goodness, I was like, Mrs. I know it all, this is right, this is wrong, it was unbelievable. So that's the biggest difference, because now I'm not sure, I don't know anything.
Really?
No, God no, I don't know, because there are so many half tones and half tones and more which came in, and the doubt is greater than ever. So in that way, I think that's the big difference.
Do you care more now about what people think than you did then?
Probably.
Yeah.
I want to think that I don't.
Yeah.
But I think it will be a lie if in fact, I'm always in communication with my old tutor from the Royal College. I wouldn't say the name, he wouldn't like it. And we often talk about those things because he works, his work is never shown. He works under the table for years and years. And I don't think he ever sells, and he never shows. And that thought of, I just don't know, even thinking about Alice Neal, who just she never showed or sold till the very, very late stage of her life. It's so hard to create in a vacuum and without any recognition at all. It's so hard. I'm just saying it not lightly.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I could really do it. But the contradictory thing, on the other hand, you long for that time. I keep going to Scotland now, which is one of the most beautiful place I know, and it's this particular time, it's just so beautiful. Like when I drive around, I'm thinking, this is the last day of my life because I'm going to be killed. I can't help myself looking anywhere around me, and it just takes my breath away, how beautiful. And I just want to paint it. I just want to stop and spend a month on one spot just painting colors, shapes, landscape around me. And I don't, because, well, I do a little bit under the table. I will never show it, but I use it as the notes, color references, shape references for my work. But half of me thinking, well, you know, one day when I'm really old and nobody gives a shit, I can just come and paint here to my delight, like 100. So you kind of wish you're not on the spotlight of that turnover production of expected paintings from you, so you can do what you really want. So that conflict between what you really want and what is expected of you in the contemporary art world now in London, it's difficult. It is difficult. And okay, if I would be arrogant enough, I'll say, oh, I don't give a shit, I do what I want. And I do try to do what I want, it's true, but I do give a shit, and it does occupy my head, my thoughts, and it's every day. It changes about 300 times a day, and hopefully when I go to bed, it's the final change that I don't care.
Like, what would you think if you went and to look around the you know, your first show as a person now? Would you think this is great, or like just very different to what you're doing now?
It's very different, and I'd love to see my show then.
Yeah.
I would really love it. And the thing is, again, back to the same thing. I mean, at the time, I was brought up and went to uni, and my visual language was figurative, and I worked from life, everything, you know, and that's all I sincerely believe. That's why my belief was so strong that, you know, that's what you do. I mean, whatever you suck out of your finger, i.e. from your head imagination, will never be as good as the scene, as what nature or light or, you know, the real world can present. I mean, it's by miles and miles more richer and incredible. It's only the capacity to see. So I painted with both hands, and I thought London is the most incredible place I ever seen. So I was painting London. They were cityscapes, and just I was in love. And that is, again, what was brilliant about, I think, about this show, because it was coming from the same place. So now, 30 years down the line, I think subject matter doesn't matter. You know, it's, again, you know, you can paint abstract or figurative horses or tables or whatever, but what matters is that energy, that something you convey beyond the surface. And the show was a complete sellout. I mean, down to the last scratch of paper. I mean, everything was gone. Like, I mean, I was very lucky as well. I was one of the first young Russian coming out before the Berlin Wall came down. I mean, lots of things was on my side, and yes, it was great. It was incredible, and I didn't know. You see, that's the difference. So I remember meeting somebody after that show, and they said to me, "Oh, I hear your show was great success." And I was thinking, success? What do you mean? You've never seen my show? And the person says, well, of course you sold everything. And I'm thinking, God, how commercial, selling everything. Because in my Russian head at that time, when you sell everything, it means commercial. You sell your soul to the devil. You know, that's what happened in Russia at the time. The only artists who were selling and had recognition and prominence were the ones who were working for the Communist Party or under there, because of course if you get any money and recognition from the state, you're there with in one pocket, so to speak.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like, Sally doesn't mean success. I just couldn't quite understand that. Now I totally sold my soul to the devil. I'm thinking, yeah, yes, when you sell, it means successful. You know, of course, when I came to UK, I had to bridge a huge gap from about pre-Second World War, then gap. There was nothing in Russia you could really truly see, you know, apart from maybe one or two major iconic figures. Otherwise, I had no exposure to American Expressionism, to any contemporary British art at the time, you know, 70s, 80s. I mean, whatever Jeff was brought up in, taught and grew and developed, to me, it's a complete blank. So I had to re-educate myself, which is difficult. So I remember discovering Philip Guston for myself. I was very actually proud finding him for myself, because, and it was in a very weird way, because I read his essays by Dora Ashton, Yes But, I don't know if you read them.
I haven't, but I know them.
And being blown away by thinking, oh my God, you know, I was at the Royal College at the time. And then seeing his paintings and not liking them. It was like, I was heartbroken. It was really, didn't like, in the books, obviously, in the books, didn't see them live. And then one day, so I used to go, before Royal College, I used to cycle via Tate, Millbank Tate, Old Tate. And one day, I just went in, and you know how they have this artist's room where they have the changing exhibitions, and one day I just walked in, and the whole room was full of Philip Guston, you know, the Black Sea paintings, giant, incredible, and I just went, oh my God, and I remember just being physically affected. I just had to sit down, it was so powerful, and it sort of happened. I mean, so he was the first huge influence on my work at the time. I'm delighted when people do find something in the paintings they can relate or connect, but no, I mean, I just always hope that that sort of because I do believe that we are all, we're vibration of different frequencies and energy, and so is the painting. I mean, we're made out of all the same particles, and so I think the painting has the same sort of way we react to it. We don't react to what we see. I don't think so. I think what you put in that back to the same authentic self, your intention is the biggest sort of input. And then of course it's got a coat, a dress. So sometimes it looks like this, sometimes it looks like that. You know, it has different outfits, but it's still in the core of it. It's still the same me or it. And if people find the connection to it, that's thrilling. But, you know, I would never imagine them to experience one thing or another. And sometimes, you know, I get letters and I get people talking about my paintings, and it thrills me to hear what it does to them. You know, it's wonderful. And likewise, sometimes there is nothing happening. It's like deep, dark February, winter, you know, cold and sleepy and whatever, no emotions. So that happens too.